What if the junk sitting in your shed wasn't junk at all? What if an old colander, a cracked jar, or forgotten keys could become something that stops people in their tracks? Something beautiful. In this video, I'll show you how discarded, everyday items can be transformed into soul-soothing garden art. Quietly magical, surprisingly easy, and deeply personal. This is not just about decor. It's about seeing beauty where most people don't, and creating piece by piece. Welcome to Archon Aesthetic Studio, a small space where beauty blooms from simplicity. This video is part of our ongoing series Vintage Garden Art, and we've added timestamps below so you can skip ahead to whatever inspires you most. If something sparks an idea or brings up a question, leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And maybe, to you, I'm just another face on a screen. But behind this camera is a story, a real family, building something from almost nothing. This video? It's a piece of my heart. So when you like, comment, or subscribe, you're not just helping content grow. You're helping a dream survive. You're keeping hope alive. Thank you for being here. Thank you for seeing me. One vintage lantern bird feeder. Sometimes, the soul of a garden isn't in the plants, but in the stories we plant between them. In this quiet corner of the world, an old rusted lantern has found new purpose. No longer holding candles, it now cradles a delicate porcelain teacup, filled with seeds and soft welcome for the birds who visit. The metal is weather-worn, dulled by time but glowing in the light of memory. The teacup, a remnant of someone's cupboard, now elevated as a floral throne for feathered guests. Look closely and you'll see, this isn't just a bird feeder. It's an invitation to notice beauty in the broken, the forgotten, the discarded. The breeze sways it gently from a tree branch, and a small sparrow perches on the edge of the cup as if it knows it's been given a gift. The wildflowers bloom quietly below, as if in applause. There's no noise here, no rush, only texture, light, and a rhythm that belongs to the earth. Elsewhere in the garden, another lantern rests on stone, flanked by lavender and thyme. Two robins explore a second teacup, this one settled on a saucer at ground level. There are scratches on the rim, dust on the petals of the cup. And yet, it's beautiful, because it's real. These are the kinds of creations you can make too. You don't need expensive tools or a perfect backyard. You need a little imagination, a walk through your local thrift shop, and a willingness to see beyond what an object was into what it might become. A rusted lantern becomes a sanctuary. A forgotten teacup becomes a sculpture. What once was destined for the trash becomes a stage for nature. And when golden light filters through the garden fence in the late afternoon, when birds arrive and the scent of lavender rises, it doesn't feel like a project anymore. It feels like poetry. Tip: when building your own, choose lanterns that are open or easy to adapt. Add twine for hanging, and make sure your teacup is sturdy and safe for birds to land on. Keep it accessible, and place near plants that birds naturally love. No polish needed. Let time and weather shape it. Because in this kind of garden, imperfection is part of the design. And remember, your garden doesn't need to be big to be magical. It just needs to be loved. Two, hanging tuna can basket feeder. Who would have thought that the humble tuna could find its way into a garden symphony? Suspended midair like a rustic chandelier, this handmade bird feeder spins slowly above a sea of green. A wire fruit basket, rescued from the back shelf of a secondhand store, has been reborn. Around its rim, old tin cans cling by loops of fraying twine, each one holding its own tiny serving of seeds. There's something remarkably honest about it all. No polish, no perfection, just purpose and charm. In the quiet morning, a small finch settles onto one edge, pecking thoughtfully at a pile of sunflower kernels. Another flutters in nearby, tempted by the simplicity of it all. It doesn't need to be fancy. It just needs to be inviting. What makes this idea so delightful isn't just how it looks, but how little it asks of you. No rare tools, no complicated steps, just a wire basket, some string, and empty cans most of us throw away without a second thought. Clean them well. Punch 2 holes near the rim of each. Loop in some twine and fasten each one to the basket's edge. Fill with seeds and let the garden do the rest. Beneath it, flower beds bloom. Behind, a fence faded by sun and rain stands quietly. There's a rhythm to this kind of living, one where reuse isn't just practical, it's poetic. Some might see these cans as junk. You'll see them differently now. You'll see them as petals of a new kind of flower, one that feeds, that sways in the wind, that draws life into your backyard. And when the evening light filters through the leaves and the birds return for their final meal of the day, this feeder becomes something more than functional. It becomes part of the story, part of your space, a tiny hanging stage for life, laughter, and song. So next time you cook a meal, pause before tossing that can aside. There might be a bird waiting for it. Three, Silverware Windchime. There's a certain kind of music that doesn't come from speakers or strings. It comes from memory, from metal touched by time, from silver that once lived on dinner tables, now dancing in the wind. Here, on a quiet afternoon under soft golden light, an old wooden coat hanger has found a new rhythm. Its arms no longer hold fabric, but forks, knives, and spoons, gathered from drawers and thrift shelves, now suspended on twine-like notes on a stave. The utensils don't match. They don't need to. Each one carries its own past, and now its own song. As the wind moves, the silverware sways, creating a soft clink that's never quite the same twice. Not loud, not showy, just enough to make you pause, to feel something familiar, something gentle. This is a wind chime that doesn't pretend to be anything more than what it is. Simple, handmade, imperfect. And that is precisely why it matters. If you feel inspired to make one of your own, it doesn't take much. An old hanger or a strip of wood, some fishing line or twine, and whatever silverware has long been left behind. You don't even need polish. Let the patina remain. It tells a better story that way. Hang it from a branch where the breeze finds it, or from a patio beam where morning light can catch the curves of each spoon. Don't worry about matching pieces. Let them clash. Let them reflect life as it is. Messy, beautiful, unexpected. Behind this chime, the garden hums quietly. Basil in the corner, succulents stacked neatly on old wooden crates, marigolds glowing like low suns at the garden's edge. There's no rush here, no pressure for perfection, just an invitation to slow down, to reuse what's forgotten, to let the wind play its own soft song on the things we once called ordinary. And perhaps, in doing so, to remember that nothing truly useful ever loses its value. It simply waits for the right hands to give it voice again. Four, drawer mosaic planter. Sometimes beauty comes not from what is whole, but from what has been broken and reimagined with care. This drawer once lived a different life. It held socks, perhaps, or letters, maybe small things that once mattered in someone's quiet corner of the world. But now, its front is a vibrant mosaic, shards of forgotten porcelain and tile, laid together piece by piece. Not perfectly matched, but joyfully alive. Nestled in its new home, surrounded by sunlight and soil, this once forgotten drawer becomes a cradle for green life. Succulents stretch slowly skyward, plump and calm. Some cluster tightly, some spill gently over the edges. A cactus stands proud in one, like a crown above the chaos of color. The contrast is striking, the sharp and the soft, the wild and the controlled. Each element plays its part without competing for attention. The mosaic work is deliberate. The blue and white pattern whispers of seaside ceramics and broken tea sets. Another piece glows in oranges and greens, echoing sunlight on a garden path. You can almost feel the warmth on the wood, the smooth bump of tile under your fingers, the cool firmness of soil inside. These are the kinds of projects that ask for little more than patience and imagination. A drawer you nearly threw out. Tiles from a plate that couldn't be saved. A handful of soil. A bit of belief that even the discarded still holds promise. This isn't just garden decor, it's a statement. A quiet one. One that says, what's damaged can still be delightful. What no longer serves its first purpose may have a second life, and in that life, it might bloom. So if you ever find yourself holding a cracked cup or a chipped tile, pause. Don't see waste. See potential. See a surface waiting to be transformed. A garden waiting to grow in places no one expected. And maybe, just maybe, you'll create something that doesn't just decorate your yard, but tells a story the earth will remember. Five, teacup mushroom garden stakes. There's something magical that happens when playfulness meets purpose. When everyday things, forgotten, mismatched, overlooked, are given a second chance to become something wondrous. Here, along the edge of a quiet garden path or nestled among leafy hostas, ceramic teacups have become mushrooms. Yes, mushrooms, but not the kind you forage. These are hand-painted, sun-glossed, and gently perched atop thin wooden stakes. Some are red and polka-dotted, echoing fairy tales. Others shine in yellows, blues, and stripes, like candy-colored blooms popping from the soil. They don't need to make sense. That's part of their charm. It begins with a simple teacup. Maybe one that once belonged to a mismatched set or survived a chipped handle. Instead of hiding it away, you flip it upside down. Paint it like a cap, bright or muted, playful or earthy, and fix it onto a wooden dowel with strong outdoor glue. Stake it into your soil, not too deep, and step back. Suddenly, your flower bed becomes a stage. A home for cheerful little caps that catch sunlight, gather raindrops, and surprise passing birds. Even the smallest patch of dirt begins to feel enchanted. There's no need for symmetry here. Let them tilt, cluster, scatter. The randomness makes them feel alive. One garden shows them in soft maroons and ochres, subtle, grounded, almost like mushrooms really do grow. Another explodes with color, as if the whole place has been touched by joy itself. Somewhere between those worlds lies the version you can create. Yours. And it's more than decor. It's delight. Pure, handmade delight. A reminder that gardening doesn't have to be only functional. It can be playful. It can smile back at you. So the next time you spot an old cup in a thrift store bin, or a forgotten one in the back of a kitchen drawer, don't think trash. Think mushroom. Think garden magic. And make it grow. Six, chair planter. In the quiet corners of forgotten patios or tucked beneath the shade of a backyard tree, an old chair finds new purpose. No longer simply a place to sit, it becomes a pedestal for life, green, growing, and gently spilling over its worn frame. The soft pastel blue chair, its edges kissed by time and weather, cradles a small world of lavender and ornamental grasses. Once destined for disposal, it now holds life between its slats. Against a bamboo fence backdrop and resting on a path of pebbles, it whispers stories of summers past and quiet mornings spent in stillness. This is not just decor. It is a moment captured in the language of petals and leaves. Elsewhere, a wicker chair hums with texture and natural rhythm. A burlap sack hugs its seat, bulging gently with rich soil and strands of trailing greenery. Creeping vines tumble lazily over its armrests, and morning light dapples through the garden, catching glimmers of dew and the tender movement of leaves in a soft breeze. Nothing artificial, nothing forced, just pure reuse woven into something alive. And then, there is the charm of contrast. A sturdy farmhouse chair, faded white and time-worn, now blooming with bright pink petunias bursting from a wire basket lined in coir. Nearby terracotta pots stand stacked, waiting their turn to bloom, while old spades lean gently in the shadows, part of the silent chorus of vintage beauty that fills the space with story and spirit. These chairs remind us that creativity doesn't always come from buying something new. It can be sparked by looking at something old with new eyes. Whether you plant herbs for your kitchen, wildflowers for the bees, or simply a handful of ivy, the transformation is both practical and poetic. And that's the heart of garden art, honoring what was, celebrating what can be, and turning something forgotten into something quietly unforgettable. Seven, vintage teacup mushrooms. There is a gentle kind of magic that blooms when we give forgotten objects a second life. Beneath the canopy of a quiet backyard garden, where morning light dances across dew-speckled petals and mossy earth, A troop of mushrooms has sprouted, but not the kind nature plants. These are charming imposters, whimsical creations from another world, crafted from vintage teacups lovingly transformed into garden art. Each cup, whether it once held afternoon tea or memories of long-ago gatherings, now stands proudly on its wooden stem, inverted like a toadstool in a storybook. The red and white polka-dotted ones wink playfully at passing bees and butterflies, nestled among pansies and creeping moss. In the corner where raindrops still glisten on the mulch, earthy-toned cups with hand-painted blades of grass look as though they've grown from the soil itself, disguised flawlessly as woodland fungi. Their ceramic skin shines faintly in the filtered light, bearing the patina of age and weather, a tribute to time well spent. Closer to the garden path, delicate floral porcelain teacups rise from among the marigolds and petunias, each one tilted slightly, giving the impression they might whisper to each other if the wind were just right. Their patterns, roses, violets, aren't just decorations. They're heirlooms. And now, they tell new stories to the garden. This is where imagination meets soil. Where art doesn't ask for perfection, only presence. The materials are simple: old cups, bamboo or wooden dowels, a bit of glue and care. But the result is enchanting. Whether you paint your teacups in bold colors or leave them in their floral glory, whether you group them tightly or scatter them like fireflies across your yard, the charm remains undeniable. It's proof that you don't need to buy beauty. You can build it from the things the world forgot, with a little creativity and a lot of heart. Let your garden bloom in stories. Let whimsy take root. And let your old china cups, once tucked away in dusty cabinets, stand tall as mushrooms under the open sky. Eight, Colander hanging planter. In the quiet corners of sun-drenched backyards and under the dancing shade of leafy trees, beauty can bloom not from expensive materials, but from memory, from meaning, and from a touch of whimsy. What once strained pasta and rinsed vegetables in busy kitchens long ago, now cradles pansies, petunias, and daisies beneath the sky. This is the magic of transformation, a humble colander reborn as a hanging planter. Notice how each vintage colander, spotted with age and charm, swings gently from chains, holding bursts of color in its embrace. Some are galvanized, silver and rustic, others painted in pastel hues of aqua and white, each one telling a story. The holes once meant for draining water now let sunlight flicker through, casting playful shadows on the ground below. With just a touch of moss, a handful of soil, and a cluster of blooming flowers, these kitchen relics become suspended gardens, floating art pieces of a time lovingly repurposed. This idea isn't just beautiful, it's deeply accessible. A forgotten colander tucked in the back of a cupboard or found for pennies at a thrift store can become the centerpiece of your outdoor sanctuary. All you need is a strong chain or rope, a bit of imagination, and a flower that makes you smile. And this joy extends beyond what we see. Butterflies linger around the daisy-filled planters, as if drawn by the simplicity of it all. Ivy cascades like a green waterfall from the rims. Geraniums stand tall in vibrant reds, beside cheerful yellow pansies. Each colander, a frame for a tiny floral story, suspended mid-air. In your own garden, balcony, or porch, this idea is more than decor, it's a moment. A slow afternoon DIY that welcomes nostalgia, creativity, and serenity. Let it inspire you to look at ordinary items differently, to reimagine, to play. And as always, a small reminder, All imagery and visual elements featured in this video are crafted with the aid of AI tools. While we've taken care to ensure the details remain faithful and relevant, some inconsistencies may appear that escape the human eye during production or footage searches. Our aim is to keep the essence and possibility alive, so that people across the world, in any corner, with any budget, can find inspiration and make it their own. Because sometimes, the most delightful ideas are hanging quietly in front of us, waiting for the light to catch them just right. Nine, planters, chairs, drawers, colanders, boots, creative vintage planter designs. There's a kind of quiet joy in giving the forgotten a second life. You don't need a grand plan, just a curious eye and a willingness to see beauty where others might see clutter. In the dappled shade of an ordinary backyard, creativity hums softly, resting in the small details. An old drawer, worn and emptied of its original use, now sits basking in the sun, repurposed with loving hands. Its surface is dressed in mismatched mosaic tiles, peach, sky blue, clay orange, each one imperfect, each one telling a different story. And nestled within, a miniature forest of succulents stretches upward, quietly thriving in their new ceramic cradle. There is no symmetry, no grand design, just intuition, a little soil, and light. Further across the lawn, something playful catches the eye. Two tiny rubber boots, the kind once splashed through muddy puddles, now stand upright and proud, blooming with yellow and pink flowers. They wear dirt like a badge of honor. Above them, a colorful umbrella spreads its arms like a cheerful guardian, half shade, half sculpture, turning a moment of whimsy into living art. You can't help but smile. These aren't just garden decorations. They're memories, turned visible. Childhood laughter rooted in soil. And then, just beyond the boots, a wooden chair rests under the open sky. It's not perfect. The legs creak a little, the back slats are uneven. But on its seat, a wire basket overflows with daisies, petunias, and trailing ivy, cascading like soft ribbons. The chair no longer invites you to sit. Instead, it asks you to pause, to look closer. It teaches you that function can become poetry when paired with patience and plants. That's the heart of vintage garden art, not about decoration, but transformation. You don't need a budget. You need intention. You need to feel your way through the project, letting instinct guide your hands. A drawer becomes a planter. Boots become flower beds. A chair becomes a vessel of wild blooms. There's something sacred about using what you already have. It's not just eco-friendly, it's soul-friendly. And perhaps that's what makes these ideas resonate. They remind us that creativity doesn't require perfection or permission. Just pause, breathe, look again at what's around you. What could be growing in the things you thought were no longer useful? In a world that moves so quickly, this kind of making, slow, simple, sincere, grounds us. It turns ordinary objects into vessels of beauty, and ordinary afternoons into scenes worth remembering. So gather what's old. Let your hands get a little dirty, and begin. Succulent frames and vertical gardens, vertical garden art from Thrift finds. In the quiet rhythm of a garden morning, where birdsong hums like poetry and dappled sunlight plays upon old brick and weathered wood, there exists a kind of magic born not from perfection, but from reclamation. This is a story of forgotten pieces, cast-off crates, aging chairs, chipped teacups, and dented colanders, brought back to life not as what they were, but as what they now could be, living, breathing, blooming expressions of rustic creativity. Take, for example, the drawer, once tucked away in a dusty corner of an old dresser. Its mosaic shell now gleams with shards of vibrant tile, each broken piece telling a story of something once whole. Planted with succulents that catch the sun like jewels, it becomes a celebration of resilience, how even fragments, with care, can hold beauty. Nearby, a pair of cheerful yellow rain boots, splattered perhaps from past puddle-jumping adventures, now cradle bright blossoms beneath the shelter of a playful umbrella. It's a whimsical reminder that even the most humble of objects, when seen with fresh eyes, can become vessels of delight. And who could overlook the quiet grace of an old chair, once a resting place, now transformed into a pedestal for life? Flowers spill from its seat as if laughter from its memory, and the grain of the wood, faded, cracked, and beautiful, tells us, age is not the end of usefulness, only the beginning of character. Against a sun-warmed brick wall, wooden crates stack like childhood building blocks, now holding terracotta pots and crawling vines. Each cubbyhole whispers a story of flea market mornings, of soil under fingernails, of the joy in watching green things grow. These shelves are not polished or pristine, but they are honest, and that is where their charm lives. Then your eyes catch something curious, a picture frame, not of photographs, but of moss and succulent life, growing gently from within a mesh. A literal frame of living art, a portrait drawn in green and lavender. It doesn't demand attention, it earns it slowly, the way a breeze invites you to stay just a moment longer. Above it, another story unfolds within a repurposed wine box, its interior lined with ornate tiles, each a patchwork of history and design. Set against this backdrop, small succulents nestle close together, a soft chorus of green and blue and blush. Here, utility meets artistry, and together they bloom. These aren't just decorations, they are expressions. They are proof that beauty does not have to be bought new or made perfect. All around your yard, vintage garden art sings a song of second chances, a melody of imagination and gentle defiance of waste. If you're inspired, begin with what you already have. That old drawer, the chipped cup, a single boot with no mate. Line them, plant them, hang them, and let nature fill the cracks with color. There is no right way, only your way, because in the end, a garden is not just soil and seed. It is spirit, and every forgotten object you revive becomes part of a new story, one rooted in care, creativity, and the quiet joy of watching life return when no one thought to look. That's the art of vintage gardening, not just growing plants, but growing wonder. Fairy Garden and Miniatures, Enchanted Fairy Garden Creations. Once upon a backyard morning, when dew still kisses the earth and the sun peeks through branches like a shy friend, there lies a world built not with grand plans, but with forgotten things reborn with care. This isn't just a garden, it's a gallery of time-worn treasures, lovingly transformed into rustic whispers of creativity. A slow walk through this space feels like turning pages of a secret journal, each vignette a small poem told in color, texture, and light. A cracked drawer, once destined for the landfill, now bursts with succulence. Fat, happy leaves in sage and jade, rising from dark soil like a miniature forest. The sides of the drawer shimmer with mosaic tiles, irregular and joyful, each shard a memory from another life. Placed on a quiet bench, it doesn't shout, it invites. Nearby, a pair of yellow children's rain boots stands proud beneath a rainbow umbrella. Their rubber skin is scuffed, their soles worn, but they cradle flowers like they were made for it. Zinnias, marigolds, and pink cosmos blooming with childlike glee. It's as if someone caught a laugh, pressed it into the soil, and watched it grow. And just beyond, a humble wooden chair, its seat long gone, has been given a new role. A wire basket filled with coconut husk and trailing blooms replaces comfort with beauty. Petunias spill over the edges like giggles from a child too excited to sit still. The chair leans a little. It doesn't matter. That's where the charm lives. Then, under a shaded wall, crates once filled with apples or dusty bottles become shelves of life. Arranged with a sense of gentle order, the stacked wooden boxes hold terracotta pots, trailing greens, and tiny stone statues, some grinning, others pensive. It's not perfectly symmetrical, and that's perfect. Sunlight filters through the slats, casting quiet geometry on brick and leaves. High on another wall, a wine box lined with patterned tiles now nurtures a row of succulents. Their smooth, sculptural forms sit like museum pieces against the backdrop of faded reds, blues, and creams, old-world colors kissed by time. And next to it, a simple frame with chicken wire becomes a vertical garden, holding moss like it holds secrets. Each plant peeks through like a character in a fairy tale. But it doesn't end with what hangs on walls or rests on shelves. On the ground, under the canopy of clover and grass, tiny cork chairs gather around a table made of bottle caps. It's a lounge for the imagined, for fairies or dreams too small for adult eyes. And tucked in a glass jar, a terrarium of moss, colorful pebbles, and tiny figurines creates a universe all its own. Light passes through the glass and the scene glows, alive, whimsical, and quietly brave. In a nearby corner under thick foliage, a village of fairy cottages emerges from moss. Their roofs are painted green and gold, their paths winding like thoughts on a lazy afternoon. Twig fences wrap around each home, stitched with twine and thyme. This isn't a showpiece, it's a haven, made not from wealth, but from wonder. That's the magic of vintage garden art. It's not about trends or perfection. It's about remembering that beauty often grows in the cracks. It's about using what's forgotten to build something unforgettable. A chipped colander becomes a hanging planter. An old frame becomes living art. A drawer, a boot, a chair. Each becomes a stage for life to bloom again. So, if you have a drawer with a loose handle, a boot without a pair, or a jar waiting for purpose, look closer. The garden is calling not just for plants, but for stories. And yours might be the next to grow. Mirrors and light reflectors, DIY reflective garden art ideas. In the quiet hush of morning light, there's something magical about wandering into a garden where time seems to pause, where forgotten objects whisper their stories through blossoms and rust. This is the heart of vintage garden art, where discarded things are given new life, and every piece, no matter how modest, adds soul to the space. Let's begin at the edge of imagination, where fairies might gather. Hidden beneath the ferns, nestled in moss, Tiny houses with pebble paths and twig fences form a miniature village. Each home, lovingly hand-placed, invites the viewer into a scene straight from a storybook. A nearby glass jar holds a terrarium of dancing fairies and colorful gravel layers, sunlight catching the glass and making the entire world inside shimmer. And just a few steps away, a playful circle of chairs and stools, all made from wine corks and bottle caps, sits like a secret lounge for unseen guests. These whimsical touches show how the smallest scraps can hold the biggest wonder when placed with care. Then, in a sun-drenched corner, we find old wooden crates, stacked like a makeshift shelf. They cradle terracotta pots, trailing vines, and little stone creatures. Nothing is pristine, nothing polished, but that's the beauty. Imperfection here means authenticity. Above, a wooden box with colorful tiles lines a shallow bed of succulents, creating a brilliant frame of contrast between nature's calm tones and man-made design. And nearby, a vertical garden, a wooden frame with moss and succulent cuttings, hangs like living artwork. The soil clings softly to roots behind mesh, while sunlight dances across the greenery. On another path, a humble chair becomes a throne for flowers. Petunias and daisies spill from a wire basket where the seat once was, their roots tangled with time. Bright yellow boots, repurposed into planters, stand boldly beneath a rainbow-colored umbrella. Rain or shine, they cheer the day. An old drawer, transformed and tiled in mosaic, brims with succulents, a textured harmony of brokenness made beautiful. And as the sun climbs higher, the garden begins to gleam. Shiny CDS, transformed into playful clock faces, hang and twirl gently in the wind, scattering rainbow light across the flower beds. On a nearby fence, a compact mirror mosaic glimmers, a constellation of reflections bound in a simple frame. And leaning quietly in the grass, a mirror framed in driftwood captures the sky. The frame, rough and aged, feels like it's been washed up from a story, echoing the serenity of sea-worn timber and open skies. This is what it means to truly reuse, not just to save, but to reimagine. To see beyond rust and cracks, and discover character. To let sunlight filter through chipped porcelain, to let moss hug old wood, and to invite life to grow where no one thought it could. And you, yes, you, can do this. Wander through your own collection of junk. Look again at that old chair, that cracked drawer, those forgotten boots or empty jars. With a little imagination, a touch of soil, and the warmth of intention, you can transform the ordinary into the enchanted. Your garden doesn't need to be grand. It only needs to be yours, and filled with stories worth blooming. Outdoor lighting, jars, lampshades, solar orbs, magical thrift garden lighting. In a world that moves fast and forgets faster, there is something quietly revolutionary about slowing down and creating beauty from what others might discard. A chipped teacup, a rusty colander, an old wooden drawer, each holds within it not just potential, but a memory waiting to be reborn under open skies and among leaves. Step into a garden where forgotten things bloom again, not with petals, but with purpose. Here, an antique teacup, once lonely in a cupboard, becomes a whimsical mushroom nestled in mulch. The cups, painted with care or left as they are, now tilt with curiosity on wooden stakes, mimicking toadstools in a storybook. Their forms are imperfect, their arrangement playful, yet they bring a soft joy, the kind that sneaks up on you when you're not looking for it. Nearby, An upcycled colander hangs in the air, transformed into a hanging planter that brims with daisies or pansies. The holes meant for draining now whisper of rain and roots, and the rusty handles cradle life with gentle defiance. The past is not wasted here. It's repurposed, reimagined, and deeply cherished. And then, in the corner of a garden bench, sits an old drawer, its face mosaiced with broken tiles in sun-washed hues. Inside, a miniature desert grows, a gathering of succulents thriving in rich soil. It's simple, honest, yet deeply moving. Right beside it, a pair of yellow boots, scuffed and soaked in memory, holds blooms as bright as childhood laughter. Underneath a rainbow umbrella, they remind us, the rain doesn't ruin everything. Sometimes, it just waters new beginnings. Keep walking and you'll find a chair, its seat long gone, now holding a basket of flowers in place of weariness. The legs still stand strong, as if proud of their new purpose. Nothing here hides its age. The patina is celebrated. The cracks, unashamed. Stacked wooden crates lean into the sun against a brick wall, their rough texture catching the light. Inside them, terracotta pots rest beside ceramic figurines, small guardians of the greenery. Above them, an old wine box reveals a mosaic-tiled interior, now cradling succulents that reach for morning warmth. Further still, an old picture frame turns into a living painting, with succulents and moss blooming where photos once were. It's not all rustic charm. Some moments of enchantment live in the tiniest details. A fairy garden nestles beneath a tree, its mossy paths winding between cottages no taller than your hand. Cork chairs and bottle cap tables form a secret nook for imaginary friends. A terrarium in a cookie jar captures a miniature world of fairies and colored stones. A small universe that glows with imagination and invites wonder. Light begins to soften as the sun dips lower. That's when the garden transforms again. Old mirrors framed with driftwood reflect fading skies and make the space feel larger, fuller, enchanted. Nearby, CDs hang like tiny suns, catching rays and tossing color into the shadows. Even simple, compact mirrors glued into mosaics turn fences into sparkling backdrops, dancing with the light of day. When night falls, the glow begins. Solar lights tucked into wire baskets, mason jars lining paths with soft candles, and vintage lampshade orbs glowing like captured starlight. These are not lights you turn on with a switch. These are memories rekindled. Each glow is soft, not intrusive. Each shadow tells a story. And perhaps that's what makes this kind of garden art so powerful. It's not just the beauty. It's the comfort in knowing that beauty doesn't demand perfection. It welcomes the broken, the weathered, the used. It sees potential not just in objects, but in the act of creating. So next time you find a drawer without a dresser, or a boot without a mate, don't throw it away. Let it breathe again in the garden. Let it hold life. Let it shine, softly, as the sun sets behind your patch of earth. Because what was once forgotten can become unforgettable. (14) Garden signage and markers. Vintage-inspired garden signs and labels. In a world that moves too fast, there's a quiet kind of magic waiting in the forgotten corners of our homes. In dusty drawers, orphaned boots, chipped trays, and old wire baskets. Welcome to the heart of vintage garden art, where time-worn objects are not discarded, but reborn, each whispering a new tale among the leaves. It begins with a colander, not in a kitchen, but cradled gently beneath a pergola, dripping sunlight through its rusted holes. Yellow pansies and red geraniums spill like laughter from its center. Further along, an old turquoise one swings beneath a tree, daisies bouncing in the breeze as butterflies drift lazily by. These once utilitarian bowls have become floating gardens, testaments to the idea that beauty blooms best when it's unexpected. Nearby, a mosaic-covered drawer rests on a bench, its colorful shards catching the sun like stained glass. Succulents gather close within it, silent and strong. Not far from it, a pair of tiny rain boots, sunshine yellow with red buckles, stand in the grass, each filled with wild blooms and shaded by a playful umbrella. Nothing is wasted here. Even a weathered chair finds a second life, its seat now a cradle of petunias and daisies, soft vines cascading like laughter from a familiar friend. Stacked crates line the garden wall, shelves of terracotta, tin, and tiny statues. Some pots are chipped, some brand new. It doesn't matter. What matters is the rhythm of it, a harmony of plants and patina. And nestled among them, a frame of patterned tile becomes the perfect alcove for succulents, while another turns vertical, turning moss and mesh into a living tapestry that hangs like art against the fence. Venture a bit deeper and you'll stumble into another world altogether. A fairy village, perhaps. Soft moss carpets the ground beneath toy-sized homes, each with twig fences and stone paths. Nearby, a gathering of cork-built furniture circles a table of bottle caps, like a secret meeting of garden spirits. In a glass jar, fairies dance among rainbow stones and mossy beds. It's all a little silly, a little dreamy, and utterly enchanting. Light begins to shift. The sun dips, but the garden doesn't sleep. A wire globe wrapped in solar string lights glows like a moon of fireflies suspended from a branch. In a hanging basket, tiny solar bulbs gather like golden orbs, casting warm light outward through the open wire. And down the garden path, mason jars cradling tea lights line the walkway, flickering softly in sand, humble lanterns guiding the way into twilight. Reflections add wonder to the edges of this garden dream. A mirror, framed in driftwood, leans gently against the fence, catching the sky, the shrubs, and sometimes your own face, reminding you that you're part of the story too. Another frame, filled edge to edge with tiny circular mirrors, turns sunbeams into sparkles that dance over the leaves. CDS, hand-painted as clocks, shimmer on a rack among flowers, a playful nod to time and how gently it moves here. Then, there are the words, messages left like breadcrumbs through the green. Grow with love. Bloom where you're planted. Scrawled across old cutting boards, etched on metal trays, or written in chalk on tiny stakes that mark the time, mint, and lavender. These signs are not just labels. They are affirmations. They tell you what's growing, yes, but also how to live. Simply, lovingly, with patience and reuse. This is not just a garden. It is a poem made of dirt and sunlight, rooted in nostalgia, creativity, and deep reverence for imperfection. Every item here once had another life. A forgotten tool, a kitchen leftover, a child's toy. But in your hands, with a touch of curiosity and a little faith in the old, they become art. So, next time you're ready to throw something away, pause. Ask yourself not what it used to be, but what it might become. A home for a flower, a perch for a fairy, a lantern for the night. Because in the vintage garden, even the broken things glow. (15) Rain chains and water features, functional decorative rain chains and fountains. In forgotten corners of every home, small treasures await. A drawer with no handle, a teapot without a lid, a handful of old jars or rusty kitchen tools. And in the garden, these forgotten things can find their second life. A weathered drawer, now a cradle for succulents, wrapped in colorful mosaic, simple to make, stunning to see. It holds not just soil, but story. No need for perfect symmetry. Let each broken tile speak. Nearby, an old fruit basket, suspended and filled with solar lights, glows softly as night falls. Light spills through its wire frame, delicate and warm. A moment of magic made from scrap and intention. Even a path lit by mason jars, sand, and tea lights can turn a walk through your backyard into something gentle. These are ideas that don't shout, but whisper, "You can do this too." A fairy village tucked into moss invites the eye closer. Toy houses, miniature fences, and pebble paths create a sense of wonder, and none of it costs much more than creativity. Or look upward, where a chain of metal buckets now carries rain from roof to earth, drop by drop. A fountain made from a glass kettle bubbles quietly under leaves, catching sunlight. It's not grand, it's just peaceful and real. Then there are the signs, chalk markers on sticks, trays turned into welcome boards, cutting boards with garden quotes. They don't just decorate, they speak. They tell you this place was made with love. And truly, that's all you need. A little time, some discarded things, and a garden that's open to new stories. Let your space be imperfect. Let it be yours. (16) Stepping stones and walkways. Colorful DIY stepping stones ideas. There's something tender in the way a garden guides our steps. Each stone not merely a surface, but a story anchored in earth. In the gentle morning hush, these stepping stones rest lightly on the soil, inviting bare feet and slow wandering. One path meanders through crisp green grass, its stones formed in muffin tins, modest, playful, and proudly handmade. Embedded with bottle caps, old buttons, even rusted coins, each piece is unique. Some sit off-center, as if placed by a child's hand, a little imperfect, all the more charming. Their colors pop under natural sunlight, untouched and unedited, making every footstep feel like a discovery. Further into the shade, where ferns lean into the breeze, the walkway softens. Concrete tiles bear leaf impressions, pressed while the mix was still wet. Oak, maple, fern, capturing the memory of a moment. These stones feel like forest relics, dappled in shadows, aging gracefully into the soil. They whisper with texture rather than shine, grounding the garden with quiet intention. And then, scattered like scattered jewels, mosaic rounds glimmer under tree canopy. Made from baking molds, they hold marbles, bits of glass, and ceramic shards. Fragments once forgotten, now finding new life beneath your feet. The stones sparkle just enough to catch the eye, but never too much to distract. They celebrate the idea that even the broken can belong beautifully. If you've ever wondered what to do with those bottle caps tucked in a drawer, or a chipped tea saucer too beloved to toss, perhaps this is it. Cement, a simple mold, a few found treasures, and you've turned debris into poetry. Not for show, but for joy. A path that tells your story, step by step. Let your garden be more than a space. Let it be a place that remembers you. 17. Hanging and stacked garden towers. Upcycled hanging garden art installations. In a quiet corner of the garden, creativity takes root in the most unexpected places. Look closer, and you'll see a salad spinner. Yes, once a humble kitchen tool, now suspended from a tree branch. Its new life cradles a lush bouquet of herbs, basil, thyme, mint, all reaching skyward through morning sunlight. The bowl, lined with soft fabric and dotted with drainage holes, sways gently in the breeze. It's proof that growing beauty doesn't demand perfection, only a bit of intention and a touch of playfulness. This DIY herb hanger is not only clever, it's incredibly practical for small spaces or shady porches. All it takes is twine, a plastic bowl, and the courage to reuse what's already around you. Not far from it, an old colander finds its second story. Once forgotten in a kitchen drawer, it now hangs proudly from chain links once belonging to a vintage lamp. Nestled inside is a mix of trailing ivy and bold geraniums, their colors bouncing in the daylight. The colander's rust marks and weathered metal give character rather than flaw. This is the kind of rustic elegance that can't be bought. It must be made, patiently and with heart. Add coconut fiber or moss to hold the soil, and suddenly you've created a floating flower basket with soul. And then there's the garden tower, tall, playful, and beautifully imperfect. A broom handle becomes the backbone for a stack of mismatched plates. Each dish, drilled through the center, rests on the one below, climbing toward the sky like a ceramic totem pole. Some plates are pastel, others painted with faded floral rims. A few even cradle tiny succulents, nestled between the curves like surprise treasures. This towering sculpture, made from thrift store finds, feels like a story in motion, a vertical journal of forgotten meals now nurturing new life. These are not just garden projects. They're declarations of joy, stitched together with scraps and second chances. They remind us that the garden doesn't care for brand names or precision. It only asks for your attention, your hands, and a little love for the imperfect. So next time you pass by a rusted kitchen tool or a chipped plate, imagine it not as junk, but as a seed for something new. Mobile and spinners, jewelry, rolling pins, whimsical spinners and mobiles for gardens. In a quiet garden corner, where the breeze hums softly and sunlight trickles through leaves, forgotten treasures are given a second chance to dance again. Who would have thought an old rolling pin, scarred by years of dough and flour, could become a wind chime? Yet there it hangs, suspended like a story paused mid-sentence. Below it, soda can tabs twist and spin in the breeze, catching the light like silver notes in a gentle song. With every wind's whisper, they jingle, faint, familiar, and joyful. If you listen closely, you might just hear echoes of childhood kitchens or lazy summer afternoons. A few steps away, another wonder sways. A simple wire basket, once lost in a cluttered kitchen shelf, now sparkles with new life. Bits of vintage jewelry dangle from its rim, each one unmatched, each one full of memory. Rhinestones, buttons, broken earrings, orphaned keys, all swaying together like old friends in conversation. As the sun filters through the trees, their shadows flicker on the grass, tiny, moving constellations. And then, suspended in golden morning light. An embroidery hoop wrapped with cotton twine holds the charm of a secret story. Threads radiate from its center like sunbeams, holding beads and trinkets that once lived other lives. From the hoop's bottom, keys swing next to beads, old chains tangle with charms. It feels like a dream catcher, except instead of chasing dreams, it holds onto old beauty, offering it back to the garden. These mobiles ask nothing but presence. No tools too fancy, no rules to follow. Just forgotten things, a bit of string, and a willingness to let the wind play artist. And perhaps that's the magic of vintage garden art. It reminds us that whimsy lives where we let it. That beauty is not only found in things new, but in things remembered, repurposed, and reloved. So gather your scraps. That broken necklace, those soda tabs you never tossed, the old rolling pin too cracked to roll again. The garden is waiting, not for perfection, but for a little charm, a little chime, and a lot of soul. Terrariums, DIY hanging and tabletop garden terrariums. In a quiet corner of the garden, time slows. The wind hushes its pace, and the sun filters gently through a canopy of leaves. It is here, among the dappled light and soft rustle of branches, that the magic of miniature worlds begins to stir. Each jar, each bowl, once forgotten in cupboards and flea market bins, is reborn not with grandeur, but with gentle charm. A hanging terrarium sways like a secret, crafted from a simple glass bowl and nestled within a knotted macrame cradle. Inside, pebbles layer the ground like riverbeds, while moss stretches across in rich, living green. A single piece of driftwood lays at rest, worn smooth by time, telling stories without words. It's not a showpiece, it's a breath of the forest, suspended midair. Nearby, a whimsical cookie jar catches sunlight and the imagination. Bright blue and pink stones sparkle like candy, holding tiny fairies between mushrooms and moss. There's a joy here that cannot be rehearsed, just playfulness captured in a glass chamber, alive with color and made to make you smile. This isn't just garden art, it's storytelling with soil and sparkle. And then there's the simplest one of all, a mason jar, humble on an old patio table. It holds only sand, charcoal, soil, and a single air plant, but somehow it feels complete. A pinecone rests beside smooth stones, quiet but present, like old friends sitting side by side. The lid is gone, left off to welcome breeze and breath, to let the miniature life inside keep time with the real world outside. None of these creations ask for perfection. They ask only for presence, for intention. These are the pieces that turn discarded glass into treasure, that remind us how beauty doesn't need to be big, it just needs to be noticed. So if you find a jar on your shelf, or a bowl that's lost its use, consider this your invitation. Bring it outside. Add a bit of moss, a pebble, a plant. Let your hands shape a world. Let your garden whisper its thanks. And let the forgotten things bloom again. If this video meant something to you, please know that subscribing means the world to me. You're not just supporting content, you're supporting a dream that keeps my family going. Thank you, truly. I'd also love to hear from you. What did you enjoy the most? Is there anything I could do better to keep inspiring or simply entertaining you? Your feedback helps this channel grow with heart and purpose. Let me know in the comments. I read every one.